All right, everyone. Things are getting very precarious here during the Battle of Bluff on October 21st, 1861. The Confederates are starting to close in on the Union perimeter up here on high ground overlooking the Potomac River. The Federals have the Potomac to their backs. And again, things are starting to get pretty dicey for the Union troops up here. And to talk about the end of the battle, I'm going to bring Pat Melton back onto the camera. Pat?
So once Baker is killed, there has to be a decision made as to who the senior colonel on the field is. There's two staff officers from Stone on the field. They go around to the colonels to find out what their date of commission is. Initially, they think Colonel Lee of the 20th Massachusetts is the senior colonel on the field. He then begins issuing orders, one of which is to take the 15th Massachusetts out of the woods over here. I believe that to be true because Devens, when he pulls out his troops, he actually goes to Colonel Lee and tells him, here I am, what are my orders? And by that time, it's understood that Colonel Lee is not the senior commander. Colonel Cogswell of the 42nd New York is actually the senior commander on the field, senior colonel. He is a West Pointer, a former instructor of tactics at West Point. His intention is to actually break out of here. So he brings the 15th Massachusetts over here. They are continuing to fight the 18th Mississippi in the woods to my left, in the Union left area here, where most of the attacking has been taking place for the last couple of hours. Once they move into this area, the 20th Massachusetts puts themselves in a position that's close by, and the 42nd New York, the troops that were under Cogswell's immediate command coming into this battle, have several companies move forward with the intention of leading this attack of mass breakout through the open field and out into the outer portion of the Leesburg area where there's open fields and farms, so that they can work their way back over to Edwards Ferry. The purpose of doing that is because the Union soldiers at Edwards Ferry now number about 2,400 men. Stone has been moving troops over to Edwards Ferry ever since the battle started here. In fact, he actually had a cavalry patrol out to try to divert attention from the morning fighting, or the morning raid on the Confederate camp. So the 42nd New York gets out in the front. Cogswell is up there with them. A Confederate appears outside of the woods on a horse, yelling at them. They don't know what the man said. He's a staff officer from Nate Evans. Some people say he was drunk. Some people were saying he was babbling incoherent things. Other people were saying he was taunting them. Whatever it was, it caused the 42nd New York to start to move forward. The 15th Massachusetts was supposed to swing like a gate behind them. They began that process, but Devens stopped them because he hadn't gotten a positive order from Cogswell. As a result of the fact that he didn't get a positive order from Cogswell, he stopped, the 20th Massachusetts stopped, and the 42nd New York started to move forward. By that time, troops are filtering into the woods where the 15th Massachusetts has left, that used to be the Union right. They begin to fire at the 42nd New York from that side, from front, from the opposite side. And that causes them to retreat pell-mell back to the line here. At the same time, Confederate forces continue to start shooting from that area that they've started to occupy. So that breaks up the whole pattern of possible attack. Union troops head in this direction to stop the firing from that direction. The 42nd New York retreats back toward the Bluff, and the troops continue to fight over on this side. Not too long after that, the 8th Virginia arrives on the field. One of the companies of the 20th Massachusetts rather, actually attempts to make an attack as the 18th, as two of the companies step out of the woods in front of them. There is an exchange. They withdraw, they begin to withdraw. The 8th Virginia follows. The 8th Virginia is still short of ammunition. So they only begin to move in this direction for about half the field here. Once their ammunition is out, they withdraw. Their advance actually begins the panic that actually leads to people running down the bluff to get to the boats. There's only 4 boats down there to get out. Everybody's trying to get to the boats first. Some people stay up here and continue to fight, but the 8th Virginia, once they pull off the field, the 17th Mississippi has arrived on the field and they have occupied the heights that we stood on originally. They will then attack forward to drive off the rest of the Union force. 2 companies of the 42nd New York are coming up the bluff at the time that Cogswell is going down the bluff. He orders them to form a rear guard. They quickly get swallowed up as the 17th Mississippi and all of the other Mississippi troops begin to move in this direction toward the bluff, driving the remaining Union troops off the bluff. By this time, it's getting dark. By this time, as the 17th Mississippi arrives at the top, along with other elements of the 18th Mississippi and so on, they begin firing into the river. That sinks all the boats. People get shot in the river. There's people hugging the bluff trying to prevent themselves from being shot. That pretty much brings the battle to a conclusion. The end product of the fighting is that the Union takes a serious loss. They have over 553 captured, 223 wounded, and over 200 soldiers are killed. Most of them drowned in the river. And those people in the river that drowned in the river, their bodies wash up in Washington, D.C., they wash up in Mount Vernon, they wash up in various places, so that this battle sort of keeps on appearing in the newspapers for days on end as bodies are recovered.
Thanks, Pat. And as we talked about a little bit earlier, we know about the ramifications of this engagement. Those images that Pat talked about of those bodies floating downstream, the newspaper reporters that Jim talked about who keep this on the front pages of the northern newspapers, which leads to the formation of the Joint Committee on the Conduct of the War. We've been talking a lot about, as well, the various units that fought here. Many of them are firing a shot in anger for the first time. We have the 8th Virginia, which would participate in Pickett's charge at Gettysburg as part of George Pickett's division. We've been talking about the 1st California. Some of you may know the California Brigade as being later known as the Philadelphia Brigade, which held the quote-unquote angle in the stone wall at Gettysburg in the Union Center during Pickett's charge. There's other units that are here that participate that go on to rather mark distinction during the course of the war. We talked a little bit about the 7th Michigan earlier. The 7th Michigan has the distinction of being the first unit to execute a riverine crossing under fire in the history of the U.S. Army. We have the 15th Massachusetts, the 20th Massachusetts. The 20th Massachusetts was known as the Harvard Regiment because of the number of graduates that served in its ranks. Go on to be part of the 2nd Corps of the Army of the Potomac. We also have the Mississippians are here, who will later go on to serve in William Barksdale's crack brigade in the Army of Northern Virginia. But we also have another rather interesting individual who is involved in this battle. We talked a little bit earlier about Edward Baker. Now we're going to go on to someone who had a rather marked fame after the war, and for that I'm going to bring back our friend Tony Wickham. Tony?
Thanks. The person we're going to talk about is Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., eventually a Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. During this battle, he is a young lieutenant, fresh out of Harvard, part of the Harvard Regiment. On this battlefield, he's wounded not once, but twice. First time, he is standing there and he gets hit square in the chest, right below the sternum, but it's a spent ball. It gets knocked down, but then gets back up. A short time later, he's standing by his commander and is facing sideways this time. This time a bullet goes into him, goes underneath his chest muscles, all the way through underneath his skin, under his chest, and lodges itself on the right side of his chest. His first sergeant drags him back, opens his shirt, see where the wound is, takes out his penknife, cuts a little cut in the skin, squeezes it, and pops out the ball. He then looks at it and hands it to Oliver Wendell Holmes. He keeps it for the rest of his life. Later, Oliver Wendell Holmes in 1874 is at a memorial service in New Hampshire, and he says a few words that I think are apropos to this battle. He says, "In our youth, our hearts were touched with fire. and was given to us to learn at the outset that life is a profound and passionate thing, and that our dead brothers still speak to us and bid us think of life, not death. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us here with the American Battlefield Trust. We could not be out here today without the cooperation from our partners at Innova Parks, as well as our Friends group, the Friends of Balls Bluff Battlefield. And to talk a little bit more about the Friends group and about the events that are going on later this weekend, I'm going to bring on the head of the Friends group, John Kelly. John?
My privilege today to be at this not only historic but also beautiful park administered by Innova Parks, one of the many parks in their system. 20 years ago, volunteers locally decided to start doing tours of this historic park to bring it more to life. And we continue to provide those tours every Saturday and Sunday at 11 and 1 o'clock at the park from April to November. And those tour guides eventually organized into the Friends of Balls Bluff to support Innova Parks. And it's an organization of almost 100 members with many active volunteers, and we're always looking for more volunteers to find on the Innova Park website. But this Saturday is our big event. It's the 160th anniversary of the battle. And we will have many activities here. 11 o'clock will be our tour. At 12 o'clock will be reenactors and a fife and drum corps from Frederick, Maryland. At 1 o'clock we'll have the George Mason Band in Civil War uniforms with authentic Civil War instruments playing Civil War music. 2 o'clock is the highlight for the children. We fire our cannon 5 or 6 times. And then that evening we have a luminaria service where we line our entire cart path with over 250 Candelarias, and then have a ceremony at the cemetery. We invite you all to come. That's next Saturday, October 23rd. Activity starting at 11. Thank you.
Thanks, John. And to echo John, get out here, walk the ground, connect with what happened here 160 years ago, connect with the people who fought here, because we stand on the shoulders of the generations that come before us. Come here, Balls Bluff, and to other battlefields to learn more about our shared American story. Now, for Andy Poulton, Tony Wickham, Jim Anderson, John Kelly, and Pat Mountain, I'm Dan Davis of the American Battlefield Trust. Thank you for watching, and thank you for supporting battlefield preservation.